They say the sea never gives back what it takes, but sometimes it sends a signal. Mike had always known the coast, the wind in his hair, the salt on his skin, the endless rhythm of waves against the cliffs. It was home, a home that had belonged to his family for generations. Yet tonight it felt different. He had returned to Greyhaven after years away, drawn back by the death of his father and the memories that clung to the old lighthouse at the edge of the cliffs. The lighthouse had been sealed for 40 years, left to the elements and the ghosts of storms past. No one had entered since the day his father locked the door for the last time. And yet, as he drove along the narrow road that led to the cliffs, he felt a pull, an urgency he could not explain. Something was calling. The fog rolled in thick and heavy, hugging the ground like a living thing. Mike's headlights barely cut through it, revealing jagged rocks and twisted trees along the cliffs. Beside him, Max sat in silence. He had been skeptical at first, laughter, jokes, shaking his head at his friend's insistence that the light had returned. But even Max could not ignore the strange tension that had grown between them, the sense that they were being watched. At the top of the cliffs, the lighthouse emerged from the fog like a sentinel, massive and silent. Its white paint had long faded. The next morning came slowly, as if the sun itself was hesitant to rise over Greyhaven. The fog had thickened overnight, pressing against the windows of every house like it wanted to come inside. Mick hadn't slept. He sat at his father's old desk, the faded map of the coastline spread out in front of him. His eyes kept drifting to the lighthouse's coordinates, to the tiny black dot that at once marked safety for sailors, but now felt like a warning. He kept replaying the image in his mind, the light blinking in that strange rhythm, the beam cutting down toward the earth instead of out to sea. It hadn't been random. It was a message. By mid-morning, Max showed up. He hadn't slept either. His hands trembled as he poured coffee, his eyes darting to the window. They didn't speak much. There was nothing left to say, only the quiet understanding that they were both thinking the same thing. They had to go back. When they reached the cliffs again, the fog had swallowed the entire shoreline. The lighthouse loomed above them, dark and silent now, as if pretending it had never come alive. The heavy door at the base was chained shut. Mick remembered his father sealing it himself years ago. But now one of the links was snapped, clean and sharp. Not rusted, not broken by time, broken by force. Inside, the air was thick and stale. Each step echoed up the spiral staircase like the tower itself was breathing. The walls were covered in writing, names carved into the stone by hand, overlapping one another. Mick brushed the dust away and realized each name had a date beside it. Every single date ended the same. October 19th, 1984. The day the SS Meridian sank. He remembered the story his father had told him when he was a child. A merchant ship caught in a storm, lost with all hands. The beacon had gone dark that night.
Mick couldn't stay away. The light had awakened something in him, a pull he couldn't explain. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw it. That same beam cutting through fog, reaching down into the black water below. He began to dig through his father's old journals, trying to find meaning in the madness. Most pages were ruined by damp and salt, but one entry stood out, dated the night the SS Meridian went down. The handwriting trembled, the ink smeared, but the words were still clear. The sea speaks tonight. The light listens. Mick knew then what he had to do. By evening, he and Max stood at the cliff's edge once more. The tide was low. the rocks glistening with seaweed and secrets. The lighthouse loomed above them, watching, silent, waiting. Mick's plan was simple. Dive down near the wreck's coordinates and see what lay beneath. But simplicity has no place in places like Greyhaven. The water was colder than death itself, thick and heavy like liquid glass. Every breath through the mask echoed in his ears. He descended slowly, the beam from his torch cutting through the dark. The ocean floor stretched endlessly beneath him, covered in fragments of twisted metal and shattered memories. Then he saw it, the outline of a ship, broken and half buried in the sand. The Meridian. As he swam closer, something strange happened. The light from above, the lighthouse beam, reached all the way down, piercing the depths like a guiding hand. But it wasn't white anymore. It was red, pulsing, alive. He moved toward it, drawn in despite himself.
Greyhaven was quiet the next morning. Too quiet. The kind of silence that doesn't belong to the living. The sea looked calm, almost gentle, as if pretending nothing had happened. But Mick knew better. The world had changed in the night, and so had he. His skin felt colder, heavier. When he looked in the mirror, there was a strange shimmer in his eyes, a faint flicker of light, pulsing like the lighthouse beam. Max was gone. His boat was found drifting near the rocks, empty, no sign of a struggle, just wet footprints leading toward the lighthouse door, and stopping halfway up the stairs. Mick followed them. Inside the tower was no longer abandoned. The dust was gone. The air felt alive, humming faintly, vibrating like something breathing through the walls. The names carved into the stone glowed faintly beneath his touch, one by one, until his fingers stopped on a new one at the bottom. Mick Carter. And beneath it, a date. Today. He stepped back, his breath catching in his throat. The light above began to spin, faster and faster, its glow turning the staircase into a tunnel of red and gold. He climbed. He didn't know why, only that he had to reach the top, maybe to understand, maybe to end it, maybe both. At the lantern room he stopped. The glass windows rattled with the force of the storm outside. And there, reflected in the lens, he saw him, his father, standing where he once did, adjusting the beam, eyes hollow and empty. "Why?" he whispered, though the word never left his lips.
They say endings don't happen all at once. They arrive in pieces, like the tide pulling back a little more each time until there's nothing left to take. Days passed in Greyhaven. The townspeople tried to forget, because forgetting was easier than believing. The papers called it a structural collapse, another old building claimed by the sea. But at night, when the fog rolled in thick, the light still turned, and the beam still carried that same pulse, 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. Some nights, children said they saw 2 figures in the lantern room, one tall, one smaller, Mick and his father, keeping watch together. The adults dismissed it as stories, but they locked their doors all the same. Max was never found. His name joined the others on the lighthouse wall, a name carved by no living hand. And beneath it, a new phrase appeared. The keeper listens. Time moves differently by the sea. It bends, folds, forgets, and sometimes it repeats. Years have passed since anyone has lived in Greyhaven. The houses stand hollow, windows staring toward the cliffs like open eyes. Salt covers everything now,
doors, stones, memories. Yet every night, without fail, the lighthouse wakes. No one knows who keeps it running. No one dares to find out. Sailors say the beam has changed again. It no longer sweeps the shore or the sea. It turns inland, reaching miles into the dark, as if searching for someone far away, someone who still dreams of the ocean. They call it the last light.
They say every story ends where it began, and on some nights when the fog drifts low over the cliffs, Greyhaven almost feels alive again. The gulls still circle above the black water, the waves still crash against the rocks, and far out where the land falls away, the lighthouse still stands. The paint is gone, the metal is rusted, but the light still burns. I came back once. I don't know why. Maybe to see if the stories were true, or maybe because part of me never left. The road to the cliffs was broken, swallowed by time. Each step felt heavier, as if the ground itself remembered every foot that had walked toward that tower before. When I reached the base, the door stood open. Inside, the spiral staircase waited, quiet, endless, breathing. The air smelled of salt, dust, and something faintly human. At the top, the lantern room was warm, too warm, and in the glass I saw them, a man and his son standing shoulder to shoulder, watching the horizon that no longer held a sea. They didn't move, they didn't need to, because I finally understood.
They say memory fades with time. But what if memory isn't meant to fade? What if it grows like the tide? Weeks passed since I last saw the lighthouse. Or maybe it was days. I can't tell anymore. Greyhaven has a way of bending time until it breaks. I left the cliffs, but the light never left me. At first it followed in dreams, flashes of red through the fog, a heartbeat echoing beneath the sea. Then came the whispers, soft at first, then louder. Sometimes I'd wake to find my room wet with seawater. Sometimes I'd hear the sound of footsteps just outside the door. I told myself it wasn't real, that I'd escaped. But the light doesn't let go. One night, I stood by the shore again. The water was calm, too calm, like glass stretched thin. And in its reflection, I saw the lighthouse beam staring back at me, even though the tower was miles away. It blinked once, twice. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. And then something moved beneath the...
There's a point where fear stops feeling like fear. It becomes something colder, something that waits. I don't remember walking back to the cliffs. One moment I was standing on the shore, and the next, the lighthouse was there again, its beam washing over me like a breath I couldn't escape. The door was open. Inside, everything was alive. The walls pulsing, the metal warm beneath my hands, as if the tower itself had grown veins. I climbed. Each step felt heavier, slower, until I realized I wasn't hearing my own heartbeat anymore. It was the lights. At the top, the glass lens turned by itself, sweeping across the fog.
And in that red glow, I saw them all. Faces trapped inside the beam, floating, flickering, whispering my name. Mike, Max, my father, and others I didn't know. Their eyes shone like stars beneath water. They weren't ghosts. They were part of the light now. They say every light must one day burn out, but some lights choose when to fade. Greyhaven is gone now. The sea reclaimed the town quietly, lifting its streets and memories the way a wave lifts sand. No one lives here. No one remembers. But the lighthouse still stands, not as a guide, not as a warning, just as a reminder of what was taken and what became something more. I watch from the lantern room, not with eyes, with the beam. It stretches far, touching waters I no longer walk, searching without searching, knowing without knowing. Sometimes I see shadows on the cliffs, just shapes passing through the fog. They look up, as if they feel the weight of the light on their skin. They never stay long. The sea makes sure of that. I don't blame them. The world moves on, but the lighthouse doesn't. It keeps its rhythm. 3 short, 2 long, 3 short. The pulse of the deep, the breath of the forgotten, the heartbeat of the keepers who came before me and the ones who will come after. Because the truth